Good morning, Contra Costa College. Welcome to our DEPD. We have Monica Landeros here this morning, who is going to share with you equitable practices for hybrid teaching. This is our DEPD calendar for most of fall. We do have a couple of workshops left for November. We have accessibility checker, Pope Tech, and color next week, as well as equitable syllabi. And we are housing all of our resources and recordings of the workshops in our DEPD shell. The link is here. And afterwards, we ask for your feedback at this link, and I'll drop those into the chat as well. So let me go ahead and stop screen sharing and pass it over to Monica.
All right, thank you, Marites. Hi, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at hybrid learning and a couple of tips. In our DEPD shell, we have moved this module to the top, but if you don't find the module, you can find the link on the home page, and then that will take you to this module wherever it ends up being relocated. Now we're going to go ahead and start with the overview, just so that you can get a feel for what we hope this webinar will do and how it can help you. We hope that you can review and reflect on effective pedagogical practices, and that you can demonstrate how to design equitable learning experiences and assessments. We also hope that you can brainstorm and outline student-centered learning activities. We have a page that you can edit within the module so that you can give us some tips. We want you to identify how to introduce and prepare students for a hybrid learning experience in your class. Normally, these are done by the welcome letter. It can be also a welcome video that will be sent out, and then you can meet with your students and then walk them through that. So it can be like not really rules and regulations, but more, this is how we're going to try to work our hybrid course so that they have the expectations ahead of time. And also to reflect and review practices. So there are a couple of things that you can build. Of course, these are optional, but when you're thinking about how you'll put together your hybrid course and design that, think about what elements will help at the beginning of the course and throughout the course. And then you will have a takeaway after this review on the pedagogy of hybrid learning, a commitment to equity-based practices. And so along with equity-based practices, we also take a look at the importance of universal design for learning and accessibility, and inspiration for active centered learning, student-centered learning in both modalities, so that we want to make sure it's clear that they both complement each other, and that it isn't that one is set one way for active participation and the other one is set for a little bit more passive on your own participation. We also hope that you will take away a better sense of the online teaching community within this district and what we're doing with our sister colleges. So we'll move down to the bottom right hand corner and click on the next button to move throughout the module. So with design, we think about equity and accessibility as we're thinking about how to design our hybrid courses. So it's better to have those already present while we're setting things up, instead of creating a course and then going back and try to say, okay, where can I stick in equity and where can I make sure things are accessible. Now, the accessibility part, we're always going back and rechecking. Even today, as I was preparing for this presentation, I found an image that did not have a descriptive link, and I found other little things. I think it was a table that didn't have the header row, so that we're always going back and checking accessibility. But really, when we think about equity, these are things that we can do as a mindset as we're creating something. And at first it takes a little bit of practice, but little by little, these become second nature. Now, we do follow some of Dr. Luke Wood and Dr. Frank Harris's practices on how to be intrusive. And growing up, the word intrusive meant that you were either a busybody, or you were not minding your own business, or that you were involving yourself too much in other people's lives. but we're teachers, and that's our job. Part of our job is to be in our students' lives, at least for the hour and a half that they have us, for that morning or that afternoon, and the 3 hours that we're allocated as being intrusive in their lives. So how do we do this? We always approach it with positivity, kindness, and respect, always, as we're being intrusive. And so we have videos in here that you can click on at the 30-minute, 43-minute, 47-minute, just so that you don't have to look at the whole video if you don't want to. You can go and pinpoint these places where Wood and Harris talk about being intrusive. It does help our students. I think only ever once, and I've had thousands of students, a student told me in the inbox message that she felt that I was being oppressive, I think was the language she used. And I was kind of horrified. I reached out to figure out what it was. And what it was is that she didn't appreciate that I was reminding her, sending her reminders to upload assignments or participate. And I do this with all of my students, to send reminders. Most of the times these are reminders that, hey, this assignment was already due, but it's still open for you. Do you have any questions? Please meet with me and let's see if you can complete the assignment before it closes. But with this particular student, it was triggering her to get reminders that things were coming up and were due. And the reason for her, I was getting ahead of things, is that because she had a long list of late work. And I kept pondering, how can I help her stay ahead or be ahead of that? And so I just wrote back and apologized, reassured her that that was not my intention, and asked her, how can I help you in terms of the due dates and the assignments? Please let me know how I can help you. And so that opens up a bit of vulnerability and willingness to work with students. And so she sent back an apology email and just said, oh, I'm so sorry. I was stressed out when I wrote this, which we know happens, right? We know that happens even for us. And so that she was able to complete the course successfully. And I just stepped back, from sending her these reminders because I knew there were triggers, she told me. But I did put in the notes. So in the grades, we can go into the notes column for the grades, and then just put little note reminders. So-and-so in their little column doesn't like getting reminders, And so whenever after that point, when I reminded students of assignments still being opened, I just would check her name out and not include her in that message, because she commented and communicated with me that it was triggering. We want to be relational in our relationship with students, just meaning that we do humanize our course. That can happen by sharing videos. We share our own experiences, what it was like for us to prepare to go to college, or maybe, could be this was what my first week at my new college was like. So things like that really resonate with students because they can see that we care, right? We need to try to be culturally relevant and affirming. No matter what course we're teaching, we can always try to include, maybe it's not a full lesson, that is culturally relevant, but within that we can say, okay, these have been the scientists who have worked on this sort of experiment, or these are the policies that affect our community, for example. So there are things that we can do, and that segues into being community focused. So our students live sometimes in our very own community. I go to stores and I run into my students all the time. And it's always so nice to see them because they're always so happy to see me, even the students who are not doing really well in class. And I think the reason there's that is because then we have that connection within the community. If we teach outside of our community, then that's a little tougher because we're not going to run into them. But we can still try to take a look at what's going on in the community where our students live and see if there are ways of incorporating that hybrid learning. Because we will come. If we're teaching a hybrid class, we will meet up in the classroom. So perhaps it is in times of COVID, it's tougher to say, let's meet up at a cafe. but maybe it means that when you take your lunch break, you take it in the cafeteria, maybe, so that you can see some of the students, or your students can see you around campus. I used to do something was nutty and just leave my office and go run around the campus for a little bit just to get some energy. And so students would see me running, which was not a pleasant sight, but they would see me out on campus and in the community. So that's one way to do that. And then bring any policies or anything that's going on in the community back to the classroom discussion. We do need to be race conscious, and in addition to that, we need to be anti-racist. And it does take thought. It's not a natural thing when we've grown up with so many biases, right? And we've been taught with a lot of biases. Sometimes we don't even recognize that. And so it takes a conscious effort to be anti-racist. And we can do that. Sometimes online it helps because we can pause and think, how am I replying to this student, right? Or how am I bringing the student back into the class? When we're in the classroom, we need to listen, so we need to pause, listen, make eye contact with our students, and then see how we can help each other, right? Now, we also need to reject the deficit model, meaning that we need to see things as opportunity gaps and not achievement gaps, and just say, this is an opportunity to really help my students move through something if they get stuck, right? And so we can have open conversations about, home life, study life. It doesn't have to be in a way that puts someone on the spot, a student on the spot. It can be a share moment. It can be in small groups. How are you going to get through studying for this exam? Or how will your home environment help you better prepare for a presentation? So I always tell them, hey, I have my kids and my husband, I have everybody take a look at my stuff before I send it out. Why? Because the family can help. And so how can they help? And so have conversations about that. And then also practice shared model of knowledge production. It really helps to be able to have students contribute to what's going on in knowledge learning and to give our students agency. And agency means that they have a choice. We can't always do it on everything, right? And it's really tough to say, well, you can give a presentation instead of writing a research paper, because those are two different skills. But we can say, for example, you get to choose within the scope of our course or within the scope of our topic what you want to write about or what you want to present. And so that helps humanize what we're doing. And quite frankly, when students select what they want to write about, it becomes better reading for us. Let's see, we'll move forward here. And I spoke a little bit about universal design for learning, and it is usability, accessibility, inclusivity. And so here we have the triangle here with the usability at the top, simple and intuitive use. And then the bottom left-hand corner, we have accessibility, equity, equitable access. And the bottom right, we have the inclusion, proactive integration. And so if we're designing assessments, we might have different assessments in different modes so that students, although we might say you have to do them all, right? But at least they'll be able to get a sense for where they have their strengths. Some students are really great at test taking, at memorizing things. Others are really great at brainstorming and sharing, and some are good at discussions. Some are really great at everything. So it just means that we're giving them an opportunity to view something, listen to something, write about something, discuss that same topic, and that way they're getting the information through different ways. And then most of the stuff will stick, right? And so it's just a matter of figuring out how that will happen. So we mentioned create multiple opportunities for engagement. And so this means individual choice and autonomy. I call it giving them agency. And then offering also different ways to display information. One of the things that I try to do is to provide textbook entries. I use a textbook, or articles to supplement that. And then I try to see if I can find an audio version for that. If I can't, I will read to them. I mean, I know it sounds like silly. Maybe it sounds like it's a K through 12 thing, but I will pick out a letter that somebody wrote, and I will just go ahead and read that letter, that historical letter, and then say, okay, let's open for discussion. What are the political implications of this based on gender or ethnicity? So there are ways to do this so that the students, this semester I've been getting a lot of feedback from my students, just absolutely loving that they've been able to read along. So I do read some of the essays to them. And I mess up when I read all the time. I'm really goofy, but they really don't care. They actually like that that it is that I'm the one who's reading it to them, and that it's not a system, a screen reader that's reading the article for them. And it just humanizes that content a lot more. And then also to give multiple means of expression by varying the method of response and navigation. So we let them explore a little bit more in different assignments. And then when we give feedback, we can do that in multiple different methods. Some students will tell you, I really love the feedback that you gave me. And it might be an audio, just kudos, great job. I really loved your topic. So they can't even see you. It's just a little audio clip, but it really does personalize the method of response. So we have a couple of different links here that you can click on to take a look at online teaching strategies or questions to consider when planning lessons, and UDL aligned strategies and principles. All right, I was UDL. I better keep an eye on the clock. All right, why is hybrid learning important for your students? We do hope that when you're thinking of hybrid learning and teaching, that you're thinking about how it benefits students and how you can design it so it best has an outcome for your students. And some of the thoughts are to think about your classroom and space design. Now, hybrid works even if we're not in a pandemic, right? But right now we have that added caution, right? To make sure that when we have our students in our classrooms, that they're safe and that we're safe, right? We cannot fall ill. That is a bit of derailment in this case because it means quarantine. And so that means that then we cannot be on campus in the classroom for 15 days. So that we need to try to make sure that the environment is safe. Normally we want our environments to be safe, but that's a little bit easier when you're not worried about the sharing of equipment, for example. So these are things that we do need to think about. We need to think about if we have sanitizers, if we have masks. Do we need to wear gloves? I mean, that's something to think about. I'm going to have to teach a class in person in the classroom, and so I went out and I got some latex gloves and I got additional masks so that I can always have extras in the classroom in case anybody needs them. This way they will feel completely comfortable and safe while we're going through a lesson or a group discussion. It does mean having to have a little bit more space. And so we have options here for you also to think about. Now we have, and you can come back to this. If you're viewing this video, you can always come back to this here and go ahead and put in your learning experience here. All you have to do is, this is an editable page, so you can go ahead and click on the edit button and then jump into this table and then just share with us your initial thoughts on hybrid learning. You will put your name here, so your name here, and then here will be your thoughts, right? Your thoughts, and then we will come in and try to see if we can give you feedback on that and explore a little bit more. It helps to share ideas, and this is one way to do that. So please do come back in here. Maybe you figured out how you're going to deal with a lab situation for your students, right? Back in the day, a million years ago, it feels like, when I used to take lab classes, the microscopes were all set up in the workstations and the students would move through one to another, but we were touching everything there. So how is that going to work if that's the setup for your lab or your classroom? For my classes, how am I going to have small group assignments? How am I going to have them work on the whiteboard with the markers? How am I going to make sure that these shared tools are not shared germs, for example? So these are things that we do need to plan, and if we can plan ahead, that means that we can keep everyone a lot more safe. The other thing is that it means that in class participation is going to be just as valid as the online discussion and participation. So online, it might be a peer review. How do we do that and enhance on that online peer review in the classroom, right? And so we can think of things to do that. I am positive that you will come up with some really great ideas. And also, what fears do you have about online and hybrid teaching? So then you can put your thoughts in here. Definitely encourage you to do that. I'm going to move on to the next page here. We spoke about equity, and it has been in our minds and discussions for a long time now. But what we have done is try to put together ideas on how equity can work on our different sister campuses. So for example, here at Contra Costa College, we use the Peralta Equity Rubric. You can click on this and you can go ahead and view it. It's very simple. It's pretty direct. And if you have any questions, please reach out to the distance education team and we can try to brainstorm it out and find examples, right? DVC also has a guidance as well as LMC, and so you're definitely encouraged to take a look at them, and you can follow any of them and think about how you design your courses with equity in mind at the beginning, at the forefront. So those are presented to you there. And then also there's an article here on getting started with hybrid, and I think that you will enjoy this article. It does talk about the best of both worlds, and I know sometimes it's nice to just have a checklist, right? Like, how do we do it? What are the things that we need to take care of or take a look at? And so this will give you ideas, article extensions, meaning a little deeper dive on things, but also just sort of an idea of what the components are: instructor role, student role, learning environment, approach, in class time, out of class time. And then it will give you a grid where you can see the traditional learning method and then take a look at the examples for a hybrid learning method so that you can match these. And then you will see that if you're really preparing and designing a course that has active learning in both modalities that come together, that meet, back each other up, right? That it's going to be a richer experience for your students. So this is a way to prepare your students for online learning, examples of what you can do with extra class time, and then some resources here in case you really want to dig deeper. We also extend your learning in case you are figuring out what to use in terms of Canvas, like collaboration tools and building inclusive classrooms or engaging students. Okay, so active learning on campus and online. Where does student-centered learning take place? And so again, this is always this notion that we are all learning beings. Everything we do every day, there's a bit of learning here and there. Sometimes we, like with my children, I sneak attack the learning, right? I won't tell them, hey, I want to give you a lesson on the making of Asian Americans in the United States. I won't say that, but I'll play an audio book that will start to talk about the Korean American experience. And so now they're in the back, they're kind of listening. And then the last questions, right? So the other day, my 10-year-old asked me about the Vietnam War. And so again, so these are active learning. Now, we do want to make sure that we have some sort of structure so that the learning that's done on campus, and here are some examples of what you can do along with campus scavenger hunts and really fun activities, that they do mirror and match the online active learning, so that the media presentations that are online can be something that are then brought forth in a work group in the classroom and then go back online to wrap up a discussion, right? We know that some students really love participating in classroom discussions. where others are comfortable being able to be thoughtful about what they're going to post in a discussion. For me, I proofread what I'm going to type out again, and then I come and post it in a discussion. So that sometimes being spontaneous in a discussion might mean for me not having all of my thoughts together. And so I do like to be able to have that pause and time to prepare and then participate. And many of our students are the same way. So we want to make sure that we can do that, that we have places for peer review and feedback, which really helps. This last week and through the weekend, my students are turning in their good drafts of a final research paper, and they have 2 peer reviews. And overwhelmingly, in the end of week discussion, they've been talking about how much help that has been to be able to build their final research paper and then to be able to get peer reviews and to be able to give those peer reviews. And so that has been really nice to see. All right, so creating equitable language in your hybrid courses. I spoke about starting with kindness and respect. We do need to do that and remember that. It's easier to do that when we're online because we have that moment to pause, right? When we're reading an email or reading something that is asking for an extension or help, right? Sometimes when we're just confronted with something, and sometimes it's out of frustration, so our students might be frustrated with something, that our instinct might be to react instead of to pause. And so it always helps to pause, right, and think about what is being asked, and then try to address that with kindness. So here we have examples of a deficit-minded sort of comment or something that we put either on our syllabus or something that we get in an inbox message from our students. So for example, in our syllabus or in our introduction, saying you may not be ready for the rigors of college yet, even if we have someone from a high school taking our class, that puts them in a position where we've already think that they are in deficit, that somehow they're going to have to catch up. And so there are ways of framing these sort of things without being deficit minded. So for example, there are many support structures to help you through the rigors of this class, including peer tutoring and 24/7 online tutoring help you in a wide variety of subjects. So there's a way to communicate that college courses are tough without saying that they're already at a deficit. So saying don't email me for extensions on your own. You can see here the all caps for do not, for example. So there are ways to be able to express maybe that extensions are not feasible. It can be, and I do give extensions in my classes, but towards the end, I do start to give them communication that I won't be able to give extensions for these assignments because we need to wrap up our course, and we're in essence running out of time. And so I do encourage that they communicate with me and that we try to figure out what it is that's making it so that they need an extension or they feel they might need an extension. Other things are simply the way we put things on our Canvas course and our syllabus. All caps, normally that's yelling at somebody, right? And to say, don't ask me about it. We are not experts at everything. That is so true. And a lot of times it takes troubleshooting. But we do want to make sure that if a student is stuck with the technology, that they're communicating where they're stuck and how they're stuck, and that we communicate back with them that we're going to try to help somehow. We can even confess, I'm not really, an expert at whatever it is, Microsoft Word, but let me see if I can find someone who can help you, or we can direct them to maybe a tutoring center or somewhere where they might get help. We might then just kindly direct them to the Canvas. I have my set list of troubleshooting things. Have you opened every item in the module, or have you refreshed your browser, or are you using Word? So there are things that we can do, and then sometimes we can even invite them. We can say, hey, can you please meet with me? Give me 3 days and times that work for you, and let's meet so that you can show me what's happening in your Canvas instance. And then when you're doing this, you discover that they're using a phone, right, to write an 8 to 10 page research paper. Or so it helps to have that sort of communication. All right. And then we always want to encourage a pathway back to the classroom. So we always want to say, let's meet, let's figure this out, and then come back. If we have a student who has been just doing all the work online and has not been coming to the classroom, and the classroom is part of the course, then we can try to reach out and say, hey, I've noticed that you haven't been coming to our class. These are the things that we've been doing. You've been missed. Can we meet so we can figure out, what's going on sometimes in terms of the classroom? At some of my colleges, getting to the classroom, they can't just walk outside their home and start walking to this campus, even if it's far. So it requires, some of my students have said, I'm sorry, I just don't have money on my bus pass to make it up to the college. So it's good to have a communication and not to jump um, to assumptions, right? And so communication can help with that. So here we have on the extended learning, communicating with an equity lens and equity language guide. And so I wish that we could put this up here. I think that'd be a nice exercise. But what you can do on your own is take a look at your syllabus, on your communication plans and your pages. What sort of language? And you'll notice also that the deficit-minded language is very curt. It's small, it's short. Whereas the equity-minded language, just simple view without reading anything, is a lot more descriptive, right? And so you might think about, how can I, just explain why extensions are not possible, on quizzes or reopening assignments, because you do have the authority to decide how you're designing your course. We want to make sure that students know that, first of all, it's equitable, and second, that you hear them. But there's an explanation. But why, right? So let's see here. Go ahead and hit the next button. Right here we have our collaborative library. And what we hope that you will do is you'll jump into this. You can edit this document right here. That you'll jump in and that you'll plug in your name, and that you will share with us a technique or something that you found, maybe research, or maybe someone's writing new articles on how to have these hybrid courses and how to try to seek out success. Is it in the way that we match the activities online and in the classroom? Is it the loop of bringing it back and tying it together? So what sort of techniques are out there? Maybe you've already experienced some. We would love for you to just come into this page here, hit the edit button, scroll to the bottom, and then just share some of that information so that we can have a wealth, or a very healthy and wealth of library resources here with articles and whatnot. Okay, so I think that we've wrapped up our course here, our mini module. What we'll do is we're going to go ahead and post this recording here so that you can review it. You can review all of the content in this module, all the links and articles. Please feel free to reach out again. You can reach out to me. You can use the inbox right here for the DEPD. Go ahead and click on the inbox and you can reach out to me. I'm happy to brainstorm ideas or to listen to whatever you've set up, and to see if we can try to build a course and system that works really well for our students. I'm going to go ahead and stop share here, and just want to thank you very much for participating in these distance education professional development mini courses and webinars. I don't know, Marites, if you have some wrap-up words here.
Oh, nothing other than thank you so much, Monica.
Oh, you're welcome. It's always a pleasure. Have a beautiful day.